Mental health is something that a lot of Christian young people don't get to intentionally address. And because we don't address it, it leads to many other issues that in the end, hurt us. And then we go deeper into cycles of different things, just trying to cope with it. But today, we're going to unpack all of that. We're going to talk about it. Welcome to our Daily Bread Ministries Teens podcast. My name is Nuhu Gaina, and I am your host. Now, this conversation is one that we need to have because sometimes as Christians, we make it look as if we don't suffer from mental health issues. But that's not true because a lot of young people are praying, we're worshiping, we're serving, we're smiling on the outside, but we're still hurting on the inside. So today, I have a brother with me here in the studio who is a specialist in that, who is somebody who has worked with a lot of young people as well, helping them deal with the whole idea of mental health, of their own mental health, and helping them to find healing. He's a clinical psychologist. So I'm not just bringing somebody who is practicing, but he's also somebody who is certified, who has the qualifications to talk about this. And I'm here today with my brother, Philip Dimka. You're welcome, brother.
Thank you very much.
Yes. I'm so glad that you're here. This conversation, I think we started it sometime in May when we had the boy child.
Yeah, International Day of the Boy Child.
Exactly, yes. That was where we started the conversation, and I'm so glad that you're here today.
Thank you for having me.
Honestly, this is a conversation that needs to happen because a lot of us young people are holding plenty, let me use the word, plenty hurt and baggages, and we don't even know what to do with it. So the first thing I want to ask is a question that I feel a lot of teenagers are afraid to ask. So, or maybe let's even start from some sort of definition. When we talk about mental health, what is it? Is it because when we talk about mental health, most people just think that this person is like is already going mad.
Yeah.
What is the whole when we talk about mental health? What is like the range of things we're dealing with here?
All right. Thank you very much for this opportunity, and I'm glad that we are speaking about this on this platform.
Right.
So when you talk about mental health, simply you're looking at two keywords: mental and health.
Okay.
If you take the word mental apart, what that refers to is you're talking about thinking.
Okay.
You're talking about emotions. You're talking about behavior. You're talking about social relationships. And our general psychological well-being.
Okay.
And of course, health, that's pretty clear. How the state of wellness, the state of, optimal functioning. So if we're talking about mental health, we're just simply saying how well or how good is a person doing in their thoughts, the quality of their thoughts, in the quality of their belief system, in the quality of their emotions, how well their emotions are, in the quality of their social relationships, in their behavior, how well are they doing, how good is it?
Right.
And it's really not the absence of a challenge or a stress or a difficulty in life. A good mental health is not that you are a perfect person and that you're not going through any difficulty. No.
I don't know if there's anybody like that.
But of course. But a good mental health is your ability to cope well with the daily stresses of life. It's your ability to manage your emotions well. Your ability to think clearly, to think positively, your ability to keep up with daily life and meet up with your daily life functions without breaking down. If you're able to manage yourself well in your feelings, your behavior, your emotions, your thinking, then we say you have a good mental health. So generally speaking, that's what mental health is.
So does it also like include like your awareness of the state of, do I say state of mind or something like that, where you're able to be, where you're at, I would say, let's say emotionally, how you are feeling emotionally, but then like you mentioned a very crucial thing, being able to manage. So it's not the absence
Absolutely.
Of all of those things.
Those things.
Okay.
It's not that you're not going through stuff in life.
Yeah.
You know that you're going through stuff, and
So
you
that's
know how
awareness now. Yeah, you know
that level of awareness of where you are emotionally, mentally, psychologically, even spiritually, and your ability to manage that, your ability to ask for help, your ability to cope well. All of that is to say that you have a good mental health. Wow. On the other hand, you have a poor mental health. If you're not functioning well, if you're not at work, at school, in your relationships, in life, if you're losing hope, if you're breaking down, if things are spiraling, then we say you're doing poorly
mentally.
Yes.
Wow. And as Christians, we like to, I would say, spiritualize things. And so the moment that somebody, as a Christian, if is struggling with, let's say, anxiety or depression, one of the first things you would do, no, just pray, of course. And that's important, but it seems like something is wrong with your faith, or your faith is weak. Is that true? Is that true? What would you say to that kind of thought? That when you say, no, you're talking about if you're struggling with anxiety or you're struggling with depression, then it just means that you have a weak faith.
Absolutely. Usually we jokingly say, "Oh, ye of little faith," right?
Yeah.
If you trust Jesus, why are you depressed?
Yeah.
Or why are you anxious? And that. But I would categorically state that that's not true.
Okay.
The fact that you're going through a mental health issue or an emotional issue does not mean that you're weak in faith. In fact, mental health issues can happen to anyone, irrespective of your faith, irrespective of your social status, irrespective of your economic status, whether an old person, a child. It can really happen to anyone. Right. And it's like saying that because you have typhoid or malaria, you don't trust God enough. It's the same thing.
Exactly.
Or because you have hepatitis, you have little faith.
No faith, yeah.
That's not true. Because we are humans. And one of the key issues why people would go through mental health is because we are humans.
Right.
At the basic level, because as humans, we are fragile. We have emotions, we have will, we have a soul. So we come to a time when our soul is stressed, where our soul becomes vulnerable, our soul becomes fragile. And in those times, our soul will ache. Right. Just like you have a physical body, and as a human, sometimes your body will be stressed, your body would be sick, not because you have little faith, but because it is stretched. So is mental health issues. So if I do not have less faith when I have diabetes or I have hepatitis or malaria, then I do not have less faith when I have anxiety, depression, bipolar, or schizophrenia, or any emotional issue or mental health issue. So that's the first lie from the enemy. You don't have less faith. It just means that you're human. And if you look through scripture, you'll see other people who work with God,
absolutely, that struggled,
who had panic attacks, who had anxiety. The great prophet Elijah, who called down fire from heaven. Suddenly, a queen said, "God forbid if by this time tomorrow, if your head is still on your shoulder." The same bold man of God had panic attack, ran away and went and healed. That's an emotional breakdown.
Right.
Understand? So that's just the fact.
Okay.
It doesn't mean you have weak faith.
When I hear people say things like, "Oh, okay, you don't have faith because, for example, you go to the hospital, or whatever it is, whatever situation, you seek let me say, the conventional or secular, in quotes, we go to find that, or to use that kind of approach." I wonder, because none of those people would, for example, say that, "Oh, no, I have faith, so I don't need to go to school. everything about what I'm supposed to learn will just magically or by faith just
happen to
I'll just get all of that knowledge. You go to school, you go through a process, and I feel that it's the same way too.
Absolutely.
That just because, in fact, I feel like I believe that it's actually a show of faith when we even seek help, and we're going to talk about how we
I agree with that.
Yeah. So what do you think that are the most common, and this is off the questions that I have here, but what do you think are some of the most common mental health issues that young people go through or struggle with?
Absolutely. So based on statistics worldwide, depression is one of the leading causes of disability all over the world. So even for young people between the ages of, say, 15 to late 20s, depression is one of the key issues that young people are struggling with. Then anxiety issues are also prevalent. But one of the key issues that is emerging from earlier this year, it became a global conversation, is loneliness and isolation.
Yes.
And that is because of all of the high, level of stress that young people have to deal with. Their body is changing, and things are changing. They're trying to form and figure out their identity. And then they have to deal with everyday life stresses, external stresses. So we are seeing a rise in the incidence of loneliness and isolation among young people. Alongside that, we are seeing substance use, because young people are trying to cope, trying to figure things out. This is the only way I can calm down, by taking a substance. So we are seeing a surge of substance use disorder amongst young people. So depression, anxiety, loneliness, and isolation. Then we have, of course, substance use that is also on the rise. Alongside that, we have other relationship issues is also prevalent. Yes.
You know that this whole idea of anxiety, when you mentioned it, I never thought, believe me, I never thought that Africans could suffer from anxiety until it happened to me. Oh, in 2017, I experienced a panic attack for the first time. I just knew I was going to die because it was my heart rate was all over the place. I went to the hospital and my blood pressure was, in fact, they had to change the type of whatever they used that thing to test your blood pressure. They used the digital one, and the nurse was like, "No, I think this is malfunctioning." They had to use the manual pump, and it gave the same reading. It was very high. I was panicking, and I just thought I was going to die. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to go through an intentional, process of identifying like the root cause, what's going on and all of those things. But I can tell right now, because I've experienced it, that anxiety and panic attacks, for example, are very real. So these are things that we know that young people out there like yourself are actually experiencing, and we do not in any way try to make light of this issue, because this is something that young people struggle with a lot, and we acknowledge that fact, and we're going to talk about how we can actually make sure that you find help. So a lot of young people feel look very good on the outside, but on the inside they are completely torn apart or broken and going through a lot of pain. Why do you think there is that idea of more or less like trying to pretend? On the outside, you're trying to give a face or a front, but deep down, you know that I'm not all right. Why is it that young people try to mask what they're actually feeling?
There's a developmental explanation to this, and also a social and cultural also dimension to it, and possibly other factors, but I'll just highlight on this two. One, because largely if you talk about a young person from the teenager, so to say, is beginning to develop their own identity. They're trying to figure out their lives. They believe that I know I'm excited. They're excited about life. They're excited about exploring. They're excited about defining who they are, charting their path. And as a result, they are beginning to engage the world from their own lens, from their own perspective. Father and mother's opinion does not really count, except for teenagers, young people who have that close, stable relationship. But right now, I just want to follow my desire. I've been told what to do and what not to do all
for
my
many
life.
years.
But right now, I'm out of the house. I'm in the university. I can make my choices. And as a result, they are on their own wavelengths. They are on their own path. Developmentally, every young person has to go through that path. So as a result, when things begin to happen, when their world begins to fall apart, the key thing they struggle with is shame.
Again, because of our culture, right?
Absolutely. Rejection. The young person is saying, oh, right now, who do I talk to? I've defied so many authorities. Do I go back and talk about my failures? I did this. I made wrong choices without the knowledge of my parents or my caregivers. Who do I talk to? So the young person, scared of, where they're falling from, begins to hide. Begins to protect themselves. Begins to, struggle with, the shame that can come out of their failures. Begin to struggle with, and of course, the other social and cultural aspect is because most of our communities are interconnected. If I fail in life, my family has failed. I've dragged my family name, and it's going to be, I've brought shame to my family. So as a result of that, they go miles to protect their identity, to protect their shame, to avoid rejection, to avoid confronting what they are struggling with. So you'd see a lot of young people, they are fine on the outside, but they're struggling on the inside. That's just the key reason, because of course they are trying to deal with it alone, because I'm an independent person.
So that independence is, let me try to figure it out myself, maybe also.
And then it gets worse and worse and worse. But the other key reason underlying the most relational and maybe generally psychological reason is the fact that many young people do not have a strong relational base, a strong and qualitative, social relationships that anchors them. So they are riding on their own, and that has to do a lot to do with parenting, the quality of relationship between parents and their children, and the teenagers, or
even
their
the younger
caregivers, as the case may be. So they do not know how to fall back to social support, to relationships, to people that would help them navigate those failures or those struggles that they are going through. So these are some of the dynamics that young people have to navigate, that keeps them, masking and keeping up a good appearance, whereas they are struggling underneath because they do not know how to even communicate their struggles and their failures.
Wow. This is so important what you said, and I believe that it's probably also one of the reasons why when they now try to look at coping, then when issue of substance now comes in, you know that they would still not share. If they didn't share the struggle itself, the anxiety, for example, or the depression, then they wouldn't share that they're struggling with substance to try to cope with it as well.
They would not share that.
That's because what you said here is fundamental, and I wish that some parents would see this, because it now should inform how they engage the teenager or the young person from when they begin to learn independence. Because it's going to form a solid part of how their lives will, I would say, turn out in some way, especially in relation to this. So maybe we should have something else separately for parents. But this is a very important conversation, and I love the fact that you put it that way. So yeah, go ahead.
I just want to add, there's a World Health Organization statistic that shows that about, I think, 50% of mental health issues in adult life has its onset by the age of 14.
14?
Yes. At the most basic level, let me just make it simplistic, even though it's not. But I can tell you that what that means is that there's so much that goes on pre-adulthood that sets the the neurobiological templates for mental health issue in later life.
For later life.
And most of that, we know it by research, it has to do with what upbringing.
Yeah.
The quality of attachment styles that a child between 0 and 17 has
with
whoever brought them up forms the architecture, both neurobiological, social, cultural. It forms the architecture with which they go into life. And so if they are triggered, if they go through a major traumatic event in adulthood, and they come down, they break down with anxiety, depression, substance use, it's because largely something went on in the background.
Seeds were sown when they were younger.
How they will recover from it is largely dependent on the quality of that relationship growing up. And so if you see a teenager that is struggling with a mental health issue, struggling with substance, and not knowing, the quality of their recovery would depend on the quality of their relationships growing up.
Wow.
Absolutely.
That's really deep there. And again, it's sad to say, but as Christians, sometimes we just waive these things, and make it look as if, no, because you're a Christian by default, you are exempted in some way from these things.
That's another error.
It's a big error.
Jesus said,
it's a big error.
In this world, you would have many struggles.
Yeah.
Jesus himself said that.
Yeah.
But be of good cheer, overcome the world. And that's where it becomes a blessing to the believer who is going through a mental health issue.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with you if you're going through a major breakdown, because we're living in a broken world.
Absolutely.
We're living in a broken vessel. We will only be changed after death, after the resurrection, where there's no pain, there's no struggle.
Right.
But we've been told right now that we're going to go through challenges. But for the Christian, there's hope, because if you're trapped right now, be of good cheer, because there's hope for you.
There is hope.
But the idea that as a Christian you're exempted is not true, because you're living in the world.
In a broken world, right?
If it does not affect you directly, it's going to touch on your relationship, someone close to you. So it means that as far as we are bounded in this life, we would have challenges.
Absolutely.
Even mental and emotional challenges.